The automobile is one of the most important inventions that revolutionized the modern world. In America, the rich history of car culture runs deep as technology continues to shape the future of the industry. Jason Stein, former publisher of Automotive News, is here to share the stories of people passionate about cars, from industry leaders and innovators to car-obsessed celebrities. Buckle up as Jason takes you inside the boardroom, onto the track, and around the bend on Cars and Culture on SiriusXM Business Radio.
Welcome to SiriusXM's Cars and Culture. I'm Jason Stein. Marketers typically live on the precipice of greatness or great expectations that fail to deliver. The advertisement was emotional, or it was too emotional. A campaign was laughable, or it elicited just the right amount of laughter. If sales are up, it was the marketing. If sales slipped, was it the marketing that didn't work? As the marketing pioneer John Wanamaker, one of the ultimate founders of Macy's department stores, once said, "Half the money I spend on advertising is wasted. The trouble is, I don't know which half." Of course, that was Mr. Wanamaker of the 1800s. Life as a marketer today couldn't be more analytical, more complicated, more data-driven, and more in demand. Gone are the days of pure instinct, traditional television buys, and pass-along rates. Today's marketing requires sophistication, and simplicity is hard to find. At the marketing center of one of the nation's hottest brands sits Angela Zepeda, Chief Marketing Officer at Hyundai Motor America, a brand that is a tiger in the marketplace with little signs of a slowdown. Her role demands an examination of Hyundai's marketing and advertising activities in the United States, including the strategic direction, brand development, national and regional advertising campaigns, experiential marketing, digital, social, it goes on and on. 3.5 years into her role, she's watched the Hyundai brand soar to new heights. It just finished another scintillating quarter, closing with its best ever March sales figure and the 5th consecutive month of record sales. Product is rolling in, and they're winning accolades at every turn. And the consumer is tuned into Hyundai. So there's possibly not a better place to be a marketer, and her track record is shining through. Angela Zepeda has been named to Forbes' list of the world's most influential CMOs, Ad Age's leading women. She's been an Automotive News all-star and a leading woman. Today, during the New York Auto Show week, we talk in studio with Angela about a marketer's role, the challenges, the chances, and the cool stuff. How to market a surging brand. Today, Angela will tell us.
Hi, I'm Angela Zepeda, and this is Cars and Culture with Jason Stein.
It's not often that we have a guest in the studio on her birthday, but wow, Cars and Culture and birthdays.
Yes.
Angela, happy birthday
Thank
New
you.
York City.
Thank you. Just happens to be a coincidence.
It happens to be a coincidence, but it also happens to be a bit of a birthday gift for you this week because you're going home with a whole lot of hardware.
Yeah.
I mean, the presents that the World Car of the Year gave to Hyundai and the entire team is frankly fitting for a birthday.
Yeah, it was. It was quite a surprise yesterday. We're very happy. It was an exciting day at the New York Auto Show yesterday with World Car of the Year.
You're cleaning up in a lot of ways. I mean, I think Hyundai took home 4 out of 6 World Car of the Year trophies, those beautiful trophies. Designed by Ian Callum, I believe now.
That's right.
Famous Ian Callum, and who's been on this program, by the way. And the 5th one was won by Kia.
Yes.
So it's kind of in the family.
Which we love.
Right, absolutely. But what a role that Hyundai is on. And obviously coming off of an incredible first quarter, an incredible month of March, record setting in a lot of ways. It's got to be the marketing, right?
Yes, we would love to say that.
It's always the marketing.
Yes. Well, it is a part of the what we like to say around Hyundai's the collective success. But there's a lot of things that go into the success of the company. But it really comes down to, I think, our leadership. I mean, it starts with our executive chair, E.S. Chung, who really took over as the executive chair, about 3 or 4 years ago. And his vision has really set the tone of where Hyundai's going. And I think you can really feel that. And for me, it really started when I came over as CMO in October of 2019. And that's when I think the product lineup was really the new chapter for Hyundai. That's when we finally got our 8-passenger Palisade, which we needed in our lineup.
Huge success.
Huge success. And we didn't have that lineup from before. We were a little late to the SUV game. That's true. We were a little long in the tooth with sedans, and that vehicle set, the tone for the full portfolio. And from that point forward, along with the addition of Jose Munoz, who has now been promoted to president and global COO of Hyundai North America, and he now has such a bigger global role. But
And has a board seat now too. He's a board member.
He's the first non-Korean,
right?
And a wildly brilliant man who is ambitious for the company, and for himself and for this team. And he's put this executive team together, and under that leadership, he's teaching all of us on how to go to the next level. And so I've learned a lot from him, and he's pushing us in marketing and what to do. And so it's actually been an incredible ride. But that leadership, and also President Chang, he's part of this as well. And I think it's just everything's clicking. The product, the design, our dealer network, and we had challenges like everyone else through COVID. But we just also did some things that I think benefited us. And so we've had that success. And so we're gonna ride it all the way. And so we're really happy about that.
One of the hottest car brands in America, growth and popularity has never been higher. That certainly wasn't always the case.
That's right.
I mean, my aunt had one of the first Hyundai ponies.
Oh, dear.
And I've actually told your dealer group, when you asked me to speak to your national dealers a couple of years ago, I showed an image of the vehicle. It wasn't good.
Yeah. Our history here in the U.S., which is now 36 years, has been rocky. It wasn't always a smooth ride of quality. But I think that is, let's take the positives where we can find them. I think that's part of the Korean spirit of, when we don't get things right, we don't throw in the towel. I mean, we go back and we try to do better. And I think that's where we always try to innovate. And we have had some misses, but the commitment now to quality, safety, innovation, the future of mobility is strongly under the leadership of Executive Chair Chung and his mantra of progress for humanity. And so everything we do now moving forward is really different. I mean, when you get inside a Hyundai today, that is not the pony.
No.
And so it's just a new evolution of a different kind of car company. And so but it's a difficult brand to now market. And if you look at our owner base, it is a little bit older. They have that perception of what they had from before, but we have a whole new customer that's coming into the brand, and it's really exciting because they know the product that we have today. So, that's the job of marketing, is to, still keep our loyal customers happy, and then to market to a whole new customer who's excited about what's in our vehicles today. So, but it's true. We have a past that's been rocky, and hopefully we'll have one that's going to be smooth sailing moving forward.
Angela, you told a story just a couple of days ago about someone on the street who didn't know what a Hyundai was.
Right.
You're still, so despite all of the accolades, despite all of the great product that's on the street, we're still fighting against the, are you Japanese? Are you Korean? What is this? How do you overcome that?
It's one of the things we talk about all the time. How do we tell our brand story while we're also still trying to really grow as a company? And there's a lot of things at play. I mean, it's true. I mean, where does marketing fit? What's my primary role? Well, at the end of the day, it is to drive demand. We need to make sure that we have the right number of people going into our dealerships to make sure that we're hitting our retail sales goals, and so that we're profitable as a company, so we can keep doing what we need to do. That's really the primary objective. But it is about building our brand, and what's that brand story. And there's so many things we could talk about. It's almost like we have too much to talk about.
Right.
And so that's what we're trying to figure out, of where do we bucket these stories, and what channels do we tell them in, where people will be, I think, open to hearing these stories, because some of them are so impactful. And we've had some success doing that with some long form content, and using some creators like Annie Leibovitz and others who have been able to capture some images and some stories of our people and our employees, our owners, our dealers, that I think give people a different dimension of who's behind Hyundai. And it's not such a far away or distant company that feels foreign. It's actually quite an American company in many ways, but it does have foreign roots that's quite spectacular. And I don't know if people really know the history of the company. We grapple with that. Do we tell that history? But I think people would find that the values of the company they could probably align with. And so we're working through all of that. And I think those are incredible stories left to tell.
A couple of years ago, you said, I don't want to be the value-based brand where people buy us because of price.
Right.
I want people to buy us because they love us. And by the way, you can probably get our car without killing your wallet. What do you think? Do people love you?
Well, I think a lot of people do. I think we need a whole lot more to love us. And our volume vehicle is the Tucson. But the Tucson of the past wasn't the Tucson that we have now. I mean, our Tucson now is incredible.
Sure.
But we launched that vehicle right during COVID. So, we don't have enough people who have that new car. And it's all about units and operation. I think we just need a lot more of our new vehicles on the roads of America. And that's when we really see that other people, we always talk about the driveway test, right? It's about, when you buy, for example, like a Toyota, and you bring that home and you put it in the driveway and your neighbors see what you bought, nobody questions why you bought a Toyota.
Right.
If you brought home a Hyundai, someone might say, well, why did you buy the Hyundai? And you might say, well, I got a really good deal on it. We don't want people to say that anymore. We want you to pull the Hyundai in and say like, wow, that's a great looking car. I know why you got that. And I think for some of our products, people are now saying that, like our Palisade is so beautiful. And our Elantra does great for us. That's our, smallest sedan. And, for a certain part of the market, people love that car. And of course, now our Ioniq 5, which is our first, all electric platform car. I mean, that is a winner of a car.
Ioniq 6, which is the world car of the year.
Exactly. It's going to be the same thing. So this is going to, I think, start changing people's perception about Hyundai and be making them big fans of the brand. And I think this is just getting more people in our vehicles. And I think this is the groundswell that we need to happen. Need to sell more cars.
Right. Just that.
That's it. Easy.
When you're moving a brand where its origins have been at the entry level vehicle level, it's got to be hard to move it up.
It is hard to move it up, but I think, where people really want to move into the next level vehicle, they're looking for technology. They're looking for those innovative things that they didn't have on their previous vehicle. So people are willing to pay for, Apple CarPlay. They're willing to pay for those conveniences that they didn't have. And they love the technology, especially younger consumers. So for us, one of the things we really hit on so well, and this is to such the credit of Sangyup Lee, our lead designer, who got World Person of the Year.
Yes, he did.
He's an amazing designer. Is our interiors of our vehicles are beautiful. I mean, it feels like, premium comes standard on a mass market car. And I think that's what people are willing to pay a little bit more for. And our transaction price has gone up a little bit on a Hyundai. It's still a very affordable car. But we're not cheap. That's not what we want to be. We want to be good value for the money. And we want to appeal to a wide base, but I think you get a lot for the money. I mean, we feel we're an inclusive brand and that, premium comes standard. And that's what you should feel when you get a Hyundai. And I think people do feel that. And they get excited when they get inside the car.
So you've been in or around the brand, if we count your in-ocean experience, agency side, plus now the brand. I mean, you've seen this evolution probably better than most. And it's probably fairly unusual for a marketer to be on that trail for so long, right? So if I go back now 25 years and you think about what you knew about the brand then and where we are now, it's got to be just transformational.
Yeah, I think this brand, 25 years ago was a different brand. It had a different purpose, I think, in the market. It was serving a different purpose and to a different band of customer. And I think the purpose that it has today is completely different. I mean, as a company, we're extremely ambitious. I mean, our goal is to sell a million cars by 2025. And that's no small feat to do that. There's a lot logistically that has to happen to get from here to there.
A lot of competition.
But it's a lot to just build that many cars to get them here. I mean, we're aggressively investing heavily into a new plant in Savannah, Georgia. We have one in Montgomery, Alabama. Mm-hmm. And just moving that many vehicles to the United States, is a lot. but I also think the market is very open to the kind of vehicles we're making. And again, SUVs were a big part of that. I think answering what the market needs and wants was something that we didn't do maybe as well as we should have in the past. Again, we were in sedans for a little bit too long, and that innovation to SUVs was a little too late. And we did miss the subcompact SUV market. And, that's where Rogue and others, dominated.
RAV4.
Exactly.
Yeah,
And so
sure.
that's where we need to, take back a little bit of that market share with Tucson, which, we believe is a beautiful vehicle. So, those are things that we now feel like we really do. We have a vehicle that's best in class. And I think we have a confidence now in the vehicle lineup that we have that maybe we didn't have in the past. So it's just a different kind of brand, and it just fits in the market. And, now we're the third largest automaker in the world. It's just a different company.
Did you always want to do this?
Advertising? Well, I always wanted to do something creatively. I don't know if you've heard my story, and I tell this tale
I would love for you to tell it.
often. And I'm in the city that I always wanted to live in. I'm from Southern California,
Right.
which, people always say, "Oh, you're from Southern California. You're so lucky, the land of sunshine." And it is. It's beautiful, and I love living there. But when I was growing up, I really wanted to come to New York, and I wanted to be a fashion designer. Those kinds of dreams that you have as a kid. And, my parents were kind enough to let me talk about it for my entire growing up years, and never said a thing until I really started to get serious about it when I was, finishing high school. And then they said, "Oh, no, no, you're not really going to go do that." So I ended up going to school in California and not going down the path of becoming a fashion designer. And I fell into advertising a little backwards.
How so?
Well, because I was a little disappointed that I had really my mind. I wanted to do something in the fashion industry. And so when I went to, college, I just didn't think of myself of doing a business degree. I just felt like that didn't suit me at the time as an 18-year-old. So I ended up getting a degree in communications, and it was a little bit of a, split between commerce and creativity. And I think advertising found me. And, I started at the bottom like everybody does. And, I absolutely loved it. I love the energy of that creative space. And, I realized very quickly, though, that I was not so creatively talented. And I do think it's a talent, not a skill. A skill is something that you can learn. And I had enough creativity in me, but when I really got to that, senior professional level, I mean, there was those that really had talent. So I ended up going on the account side, but I had enough to be part of it, and I just loved it. And so I had a long career in advertising, and had wonderful jobs, and just thrived at it. And so I caught the bug.
What type of fashion designer were you going to be?
I don't know, who knows? I mean, I still love fashion of all kinds.
Are we talking clothing? We talking
Clothing, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, it's a hard business. I mean, that I do know. And but I just love I love anything that has to do with aesthetics. I mean, I love architecture too, and interior design, and I love car design too. I mean, there's what I do today is actually quite interesting to me. I just spent a week last week in Korea, and it was with our global brand team, and part of the week was doing a cultural immersion in just the Korean culture, which is so amazing. Just being immersed in what's happening with the renaissance of the Korean culture, and sort of these creators that are taking traditional Korean crafts and what they're doing to make it fresh and this individual craft. I mean, just K culture is just booming. And for me, as someone who has a creative bent, I just was amazed. I mean, we met this amazing architect and a furniture designer. And I mean, so I love all that. And so my advertising background, that's and today, being a chief marketing officer, I mean, my day-to-day work is really doing business operations with part of the executive team. The advertising is it's just a sliver of what I do. There's a big part of my team that does all that work with our ad agency, but it's still the part I love the most. And it's the storytelling and the magic that comes to life. But Yeah. So my trajectory, who knows? I mean, I buy clothes. I still love them. But it's just a way to express yourself. And
But let's go back to the first job. So how do you go from I want to be in New York City as a fashion designer to now I'm in the car business?
well, in Southern California, I'm going to date myself now on my birthday.
You
So,
should.
in the late 80s, to the 90s, there were a lot of car companies that went to California.
Yeah.
So the ad agencies went there as well. And so that's where it was.
Ford Motor Company
Exactly.
Brought Jaguar and from a North American perspective,
Yeah,
Land
so
Rover.
I actually went to work for Conan Belding on the Mazda account is where I landed.
Mhm.
And so that's, it was easy to get work in Southern California at that time because that's what was there. And, great place to start because, there's good budgets and, these car accounts do a lot of work and a lot of channels. So you get great experience. And so it's just a great place to learn. And that's advertising is actually kind of like an internship, it's an apprenticeship.
Right.
When I came out of school, I didn't even know what advertising really was. It wasn't until I got to the agency that I really began to learn, and it was really exciting. And it still is a learning process, and that is another exciting thing about it. I mean, we are constantly learning and being humble about what we're doing and looking at what we're putting out in the market and testing it and saying, is that still good enough, or can we do better? And of course we can do better, but that was the beginning.
Were you a car girl?
I always loved cars.
Yeah.
I mean,
Were your parents?
Oh yeah.
Car people?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I mean, Southern California.
Of course. Yeah. So we grew up with cars and always loved them, and grew up. We were back then. I mean, getting a license was the thing that you couldn't wait to have.
Sure.
I don't know if kids feel that way today, but back then,
I think some do.
Getting a car was freedom. Couldn't wait to get a car, and I had a Volkswagen Bug as my first car. That wasn't a untypical thing for a girl in Southern California, but no, it was awesome. It was great. I loved it. Yeah, I really did. And then I just found I always thought I could find work in New York. I always thought, well, maybe I'll get a job at an ad agency in New York. It just never happened. I mean, I'm just supposed to be in Southern California, I guess, because I found incredible jobs. I did end up going. I was born and raised in Orange County, which it's just hilarious. I'm back there again today because that's where Hyundai is based. But I was in LA for many, many years, and I just found incredible jobs there and have just been honestly very lucky, and worked from some incredible ad agencies, some of the biggest, and worked on I ended up not always working on auto. I moved out of that and did a lot of new business pitching and worked on, probably every major industrial sector there was, which was great. And then brought all that experience, back to automotive. And I ended up coming to Enotion, the agency for Hyundai, basically through an old boss of mine who had come there. Who's
that?
Tim Blatt. He was the
course.
chief operating officer at the time.
Right.
And
a lot of Mazda work.
A lot of Mazda
that he
work.
did for Donor.
It's for Donor. And I had worked with him at Donor and loved working with him. And he was an amazing boss and mentor of mine. And so he was at Enotion, and I had just finished a job that I had parted with. And, he said, well, before you decide what to do next, why don't you come down here to Enotion and maybe help me build the non-auto side of Enotion? Because Enotion was built for Hyundai. I said, okay, that sounds interesting. And, I was a little tired of driving back and forth up to LA. I was living in Long Beach, for listeners who might know that it's not that far away, but on LA freeways, it's far enough.
It can take a day.
Yeah, exactly. So, I did that, and I just ended up falling in love with the agency, and then just through some circumstances, within a couple of years, I was leading the Hyundai account. I just was able to do that, and then within a short amount of time, other circumstances happened that there was a chance for me to be invited by Jose Munoz to come over and be CMO of Hyundai, which was a huge surprise. So all these doors opened for me. But that's how I ended up becoming CMO of Hyundai. No design on my part, just happened to be in the right place, and just all these things laddered up to that point in time.
You're among a group of very powerful companies whose CMO are women. CMOs are women.
Yes.
In a male-dominated industry.
Yes.
We actually shared the stage this week with another very powerful, now global CMO, and Allison Witherspoon, who's been on this program.
Yes.
Of Nissan. Talk to me about that.
Yeah. Well, first of all, big congratulations to her. And I don't know Allison very well, but I know her well enough. And I think it's amazing that there's all these women who are CMOs. I think, is it a coincidence? I'm not sure. And I don't know if it really matters. I just think it's great. And I think it's a network of women that I feel, from my perspective, very supportive. I think it's wonderful that she got promoted to her new position. And then the person that she selected to replace her as the US CMO is a person I know very well, Maristela Marinkovic, who was previously at Kia, but she was also previously at Enotion. And so we actually know, it's a small industry. We know each other all very well. But there's some amazing women who are doing some amazing work. And it's not an easy job to do. It's very big. There's a lot of people to manage, and the competition is fierce, and we all have a lot of goals to hit. And so I appreciate what she has to get done. And she's doing a terrific job. So it was fun to share the stage, and we watch with each other's doing with envy, and we learn from each other too. And I like I said, I never sit here and think like, oh, I got this all wrapped up. It's not the attitude. I mean, things change daily, and you have to move with the marketplace. So watching what others are doing is helpful. And but we also have our plan that we need to do at Hyundai, and we're unique and special in our own way. But it's really great to see all these ladies doing great.
You became the first woman to join the Hyundai C-suite when you were named CMO in 2019. You're no longer the lone woman on the team at all.
No.
In fact, it's a very diverse group of leaders who are at Hyundai.
Yeah.
What did it mean to you then to be the first, and where is Hyundai now? And I would say, just stepping back, where's the industry in terms of women in leadership roles?
Yeah. Well, okay, I'll start with the last part of the question. I think there's still a lot more to go with getting more women at executive levels and leadership. I think there's a lot of women in the industry, but they need to be promoted up and supported to go to those executive levels. I still think there's not enough, and I think that'll just take time. But when I was named CMO, and when Jose asked me to come over, I really was surprised. And the reason for that, it didn't have anything to do with my capability or anything like that. It was just that I thought maybe at that time, when I was at Enotion, that perhaps maybe I could even be COO. Tim Blett had left the agency, and I was kind of informed that there had never been a woman at the C-suite for a Korean company. And so it was kind of just a accepted thing. And so when Jose asked me if I wanted to come over to Hyundai to lead marketing as CMO, I said, well, of course, I think I would be stupid not to take the job, and this is amazing. And he said, well, you seem really surprised. And I said, well, I am. And he said, why? And I said, well, I didn't think there would ever be a woman in the C-suite. And he said, well, that was true, but today we're going to break that. But I think it took a foreigner, honestly, to step ahead and say, we have to actually have women in our executive suite. And then shortly thereafter, he hired another a handful of other amazing women, Claudia Marquez, who now is our COO of Genesis, right, who's doing an amazing job. Brilliant woman. And then Olabisi Boyle, who's our head of product and mobility services. And there's just a whole handful of other women who are coming. So that's terrific. When I first was the one woman, my first thought was, I hope I'm not the only one for very long, because right. I don't want it to be, I got hired because I was a woman. I wanted to be hired because I had the capability and the background to do the job right. And I think that's how most women feel about being in these jobs, is you just want to get the job done. And you want your gender to sort of just fade away to the background, to be honest. So for me, I was really glad that there were other women very quickly. Jose did that job very fast, and I suddenly was not the only one. And I thought, this is great. Now we're just a diverse team, and we have, people of color. And that's great. And we're also very diverse with, people, the LGBTQ community. And I think we're a very open company, and we're very supportive. So I think that openness has really been from our senior executive leadership, and really from Jose, and that continues to grow. But I think we really need to support our women who are really at the mid-level manager. But I guess the last thing I would say, it's tough probably for working mothers. I never had children myself. This job is everything I have ever done. People ask me all the time. Women ask me all the time, like, how did you become CMO? And it's like, well, I didn't pull a ticket, and it didn't happen overnight. It's been 30 plus years of a lot of hard work.
Yeah.
And that's
every marathon begins with the first step. Right?
And it's really true. And I wish I could tell you it was a shorter version of this story, but it's not. And I was late to a lot of things. I didn't get promoted early or fast, and I wasn't, a 40 under 40 or a 30 under 30. I didn't make any of those lists. I was a 50 over 50. You know what I mean? I mean, I'm telling you, I was long in the tooth in all of it. The only thing I would say to all of that is when I finally got some of these titles, I was like, oh yeah, I know how to do this job. Like, I've been doing this job for a long time, and now I have the title. So that I do feel very confident in. But I just, tell these ladies to be patient, do good, hard work. Eventually it does come. But there is no shortcut to success. And when you do good, hard work for a long time, you really become extremely valuable. And so I do think people get frustrated, but being a working mom is tough. And we have to support these moms who have families. I think that's really hard to juggle some of these career jobs. And I have a couple working moms on my team, and I see it. And I do recognize, I was like, I don't have children to worry about at home. I think that's one of the hardest things, I think, for working moms. So I always want to applaud those who do both.
Do you feel a responsibility to offer a hand up to the next generation?
Sure, I do. Yeah. And I think I have to be kind of an empathetic leader. I have to watch and see, when people are struggling a little bit, I think in their personal lives too, and just, help a little bit, and, be supportive and give opportunity. And I'm not a micromanager. I give people a little bit of rope before I tug on it and say, no, we got to go this way. Because I don't like to be micromanaged myself. But it is a chance for people to grow and to learn. We do have a job to do, and there's goals to hit. So, you can't let it go for too long. I mean, we got to be serious about what we do. But I also feel like people want to have an opportunity to do the work that they want to do as individuals. And that's part of our culture we're trying to foster, is that we want people to come to the table with their ideas and their thinking. So I think you have to give some people some room to do that. Now you can do that in an ad agency. That culture I grew up in, I got that. I don't know if that's so much the culture that was in a corporate culture or a Korean culture. I think that's some of my sensibility that maybe I'm helping to bring. But I had that in a creative culture. So I hope that becomes more and more. So we'll see. This is part of, I think, the job I'm supposed to do as being a woman leader.
Hyundai just announced its third annual Hyundai Women in STEM Scholarship.
Yes.
5 high school seniors or undergrads are going to receive a $10,000 scholarship. The company's run the program actually since 2000, if I'm right about that.
Mm-hmm.
Those programs have got to be critical to the success. Talk about changing the culture. This is cars and culture, but that is changing a culture, right?
Yes.
And even your experience in Korea just last week.
Yeah.
Understanding the culture and trying to elicit some change.
Yeah, we're doing lots of things like that. I mean, we're just trying to, I think, just give more visibility and extend a hand, I think, to just bringing up people to help them give more visibility, to get them more exposure into the car industry, and bringing in all kinds of people that maybe felt like they didn't have access or wouldn't be able to come into the auto business. And I think, things like the STEM scholarship are part of that. And, we have a responsibility to do that at Hyundai. There's no reason why we wouldn't start fostering those people at an early age. And, it is the first time we've done this, and we're really serious about it. And it's exciting. I think I think some people feel like, well, I don't know, I'm not an engineer. What role can I play at a car company? It's fun being at a car company. It's really exciting. I mean, it's a huge industry and there's a lot that needs to be done. And so I think, people learn there's tons of jobs to be done at a car company. And so if you get exposure to that, then find a place and come join, this incredible industry.
So let's talk about some of that fun stuff, because all I have to do is look at your Instagram account to see all the fun things that you're doing. And I know it's work.
Man.
I know it's work.
We're curated to make it look good.
Right. It's all about the marketing.
It's all about the marketing.
No, but I mean, you've teamed up with just recently, I mean, Kevin Bacon,
yes,
and did some fun stuff on TikTok.
Now we're just one degree of separation.
You and I are actually. I'm 1 degree. I'm 2 from him, but you're 1.
Now I'm 1 officially. I came up 5 degrees.
But you've had some help from him through the years. I mean, Jason Bateman's been part of the program. You've had you're involved in the Super Bowl, Sunday Night Football. I mean, that's all kind of if you want to talk about the future, future employees, future teammates, and you go, well, there's fun in the car business. Doesn't get much more fun than that. You go to the Grammys, you go to the Oscars, you do all these things, right?
Yeah.
What's that like?
It's fun, but it's work, and we make choices. I mean, there is a day job to be done, so we can't say yes to everything. It's not all about the
red carpet.
It's not about. We did go to the red carpet this year, but that's been the first time in a long time, and it was very stressful. I will say, people are like, "Oh my God, you went to the Oscars." Somebody did see me on TV. I was right behind the actor who played the Mandalorian. And then they sent it to me while I was there, and I was like, oh my God, I was on TV. That was so weird. But it's stressful. I'm a regular person. I don't have a stylist. No one's doing my hair and makeup. My dress came in a box on a Wednesday night, and I tried to get it tailored, and it was very stressful to get ready for that Oscars that just happened. But we went because we had a partnership with Disney. And so we had a spot that ran, and there was a special moment because it's their 100th anniversary and we're the auto exclusive partner with them. This is the second time we've partnered with Disney, which we love. We, in fact, had a platinum edition car that we showed at the auto show yesterday. Well, it'll premiere. I guess it's officially going live today, but it's really exciting. And Hyundai engineers with Disney Imagineers came up with this Ioniq 5 Platinum Edition. So it's going to be great stuff. And we'll have a lot of creative coming up through the year that'll just help celebrate that. But, all that stuff is great. It sounds glamorous, and a lot of it is. But the budgets that we have, which are generous, it's not without a lot of responsibility. And so it's a lot of rigor on where do we place those investments and where do we get the biggest bang for our buck. So, there's 2 things we have to get done. One is to drive the demand, and that's a lot of performance-based marketing, and that's a lot of stuff that nobody sees. It's a lot of digital and social, and it's lower funnel stuff that when people are shopping for a vehicle, how do I really get them into that next best action to help, make sure that they have the information that drives them to maybe choose a Hyundai. But then a lot of it is about helping to build awareness or help to build our brand. And that's sort of the bigger stuff that everybody sees. And then that gives us opportunity, as the marketer, that gets us invitations to kind of get to go to these, very glamorous things. But, it takes a long time before you get those invitations. But, it's one of the perks of the business, and it is a lot of fun.
And the ROI is a little difficult to measure at times, isn't it? I mean, a lot of it's about halo. It's brand building, right?
It's very much so. Yeah. And we have, brand metrics that we look at to see if we're, moving that needle, and it's very difficult to move, and it takes years. They're very much a lagging indicator. Which is why those performance indicators are ones we look at pretty much on a daily and weekly basis. And so the 2 have to go hand in hand. But, building the brand is for the long haul, and being in those sort of cultural pop moments is where we want to show up as a foreign brand. We want to be where, eyeballs are most, which is, like why Sunday Night Football is a partner we've been with for a long time. That's where people show up and really watch is, live sports, and our partnership with Disney. It's a beloved American brand, and they develop content with us. It isn't an off the shelf, partnership where we just put, a logo. It's actually curating content that's very unique for us, and that's why we like it. So it's exciting stuff. I mean, it is very exciting. I mean, to think that we're working with these partners is something special for sure.
But it's hard to be a marketer today, isn't it? I mean, if I go back to 25 years ago, you were making a decision whether it was ABC, NBC, or CBS.
That's right.
And now, and maybe some print advertising
Yeah.
in Vogue.
Yeah.
But now I mean, not only is everything measured so many different ways, but you have streaming services, and
Yeah.
there's Netflix, and there's Paramount Plus and Disney Plus. And I mean, you must be bombarded with options.
We're bombarded. That is
Yeah.
the word. And it is really tough. We lean on our agencies to help us, to really give us the strategy. We work on this as a collective effort, about what really is the best place for us and where we put our investment. And it's a constant conversation. And it needs refinement constantly. We have a lot of tools in place that help us tell us, not only where we've spent our money, and that's nice to know, but we're really where we need to spend it moving forward. And the technology and the places where to spend it is constantly changing. And we test and we use a lot of new platforms to learn. But we have to also rely on a lot of things that we know work well, because we've got this job to get done. So we have to use those tools that, and channels that work really well for us. So it's a constant effort, and it's very serious, because those are dollars that have to be spent, very wisely. So, that's where the fun and games, sort of stop for me. When people say it looks like it's a lot of fun, it's like, well, actually, as we're walking up the red carpet, my phone is blowing up with a lot of decision making, and we're making, we're working all the time.
Sure.
It is very serious stuff, and we don't take it lightheartedly at all. And we're looking at things constantly, and we do have lots of conversations about new things that are coming. We don't want to leave anything off the table, but we know it works too. So it's kind of both.
3.5 years later, what's the most satisfying campaign that you've put together?
Oh gosh,
Do you have a favorite?
Well, we love all our children, because we put a lot of labor of love. But I have to say
But you don't have any children, so tell me about
exactly. So they're all, foster children. No, I have to say the one that was probably the most surprising, but to me struck my gut and my heart immediately, came early on, and it was a wrong phone call. And it was from Annie Leibovitz and her team, and they were actually looking for the Genesis team. And I don't know what happened there. I don't know if they tried to call and they didn't call them back. I mean,
so you answered the phone. You said, "Well, hello, Annie's team. This is not Genesis.
This is not
It's our sister brand, but it's not Genesis. You've reached Hyundai."
You reached Hyundai, and then and they said, "Oh, can you connect us to them?" And I said,
"Please hold."
I don't know. Maybe. What do you guys got? Because I love Annie Leibovitz. Of course I do, because I love fashion, and I know Annie very well, and she's one of my favorite photographers. And so, she had worked with other luxury brands, and so this is what they thought they might do with Genesis. But after we started chatting, and I told them, "There's no way I'm going to connect you to Genesis," they actually, Annie herself loved this idea of working with the mass market brand of Hyundai, whom she herself didn't know much about, typical to the story we hear so often. And once she heard about Executive Chair E.S. Chung, and he was the grandson of the original founder of the Hyundai Motor Group, and where we had been on this trajectory of a company, and that we'd only been in the U.S. for 35 years, and all the stories that it was basically a company that was born to put the people of South Korea back to work after the Korean War, and where even Korea's been in such a short amount of time. I mean, people do not know this story. And she was just like, oh, I am going to do this project with Hyundai. And so basically the project is photographs of our employees and some of our owners and our dealers, taken with the artistry of Annie's lens that she just captured so beautifully. And then we did some video as well. Some of these are heartwarming stories that'll make you cry. It was just digital only, and social. And then we partnered with Condé Nast. And then the crazy story was the person I really wanted to capture was our executive chair, E.S. Chung, because we needed a photo for something. When I first came over CMO, I forget what it was. And we called to Korea, and they sent us this photo, and it was a terrible photo. I mean, it would look like a mugshot. And I was like, oh my God, this is terrible. This is our executive chair. You don't have anything better? Isn't there even a high school photo better of this guy? I mean, come on, man, this is terrible. So I thought, okay, we got to have Annie take this photo of executive chair, but how am I going to ask? And anyway, I had an opportunity to finally ask him, and I thought maybe he could say no. I mean, but he ended up saying yes. He was the first photo she took. And
beautiful
from there,
pictures. Beautiful.
And Jose Munoz was the last photo we took, which just happened. So anyway, if you get a chance, it's
Journeys, right?
Hyundai Journeys with Annie Leibovitz, and I think I'm the most proud of that campaign.
She took your photo too.
She did.
Are you happy with it?
Well, it wasn't about me, so she made me do it. But yes, it was incredible to have the experience with Annie. I don't really like having my photo taken, but I have to say the experience was well worth it.
You got back into New York fashion then, didn't you?
I did.
I mean, Condé Nast and Annie Leibovitz and
did.
the girl from Orange County made it to New York in fashion.
And Annie, who's an amazing person, very down to earth, and we love her for what she did for us. We love that campaign.
Just a few minutes left. EVs and internal combustion engine vehicles. You just obviously, as we said, took home a suitcase full of trophies for all of the EVs that you have out there. How do you market EVs differently than internal combustion?
Yeah, we it's a different buyer. They're a little younger, they're a little savvier. They come into the dealership with a lot more info. We're trying to build some general awareness. There's still a lot of myths about them. But it's just a little bit different buyer altogether. We have to have a lot more information on all our digital channels. I think that's the biggest thing is it's just a lot more information, just trying to get people to understand that it's just a different experience overall, but not scary. And these vehicles are amazing and not the EVs of the past. But yeah, we use a lot of digital, social. We do streaming with a lot more deeper engaged content. We can do longer form content if they're interested in that. And also helping to train our field staff and our dealers to also be a lot more technologically up to speed on what the vehicles are. And of course, all our dealers have to be certified in order to sell these vehicles. So it's just about being much more educated and informed because the customer is. And I think that's the biggest difference.
Marketers are always ahead of the curve. So real quickly, what are we going to be looking at 2 or 3 years from now in terms of a platform or a way to market or what's coming? What's the next TikTok that you're looking at and going, I think we'll put it there?
Oh God, if I knew what that was, I would be a jillionaire. I would love to know what that is. I think the thing that we're going to see is just a lot more proliferation of all these platforms. There could be some consolidation. I think that's definitely a possibility. We're seeing some waning of some social platforms. I think people are using social already in a different way. Privacy and data is also impacting the way we get to use these platforms. So I think we're all trying to figure it out. I don't know what the next new big platform is, but it's constantly changing. And let's just quickly, NFTs. I mean, we thought that was going to be the big thing and it already is not. So I don't know. I think the biggest thing as marketers is not to jump in too fast. We never want to just do something because it's there. I want to do it because it feels right for our brand. And that's why I think just because it's a new sexy platform, don't use it just because it's a vehicle. Do it because you feel like you have a purpose for being there. So we'll see. But I think there's always opportunity. And that's what we look for is to see if that's where people are and if that's where we want to show up in a right and authentic way, then we will. If not, then we move on. But I think it's exciting and we know it won't be boring. That's for sure.
We'll look for you on the red carpet.
Thank you.
Sure, in the future.
Okay.
Thank you for spending your birthday with me.
Thank you for inviting me. It's been so much fun. It was a wonderful way to kick off the day.
She is on the Forbes list of the world's most influential CMOs. We're happy to have her on Cars and Culture.
Angela, you, Jason.
Thank you.
Great to see you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks again to my guest today in New York, Hyundai Chief Marketing Officer Angela Zepeda. And to see my interview with Angela, go to the Cars and Culture YouTube channel. Like and subscribe to see more than 90 interviews. And thanks for listening to Cars and Culture. You can follow us on LinkedIn and Facebook, as well as on Instagram at Cars and Culture SXM, and on Twitter at Cars and Culture. From New York, I'm Jason Stein. We'll see you down the road.